Don't worry, I got both heads. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. The brand new Superman movie is coming out soon, and I wanted to see if you could beat Fallout 4 as Superman. Now, obviously, the Man of Steel is a very powerful force of nature, with a slew of powerful abilities from flight, super strength, and heat vision to name a few. This video is more for fun than anything else, and to see just what kind of bullshit I can do with this absolute powerhouse. So if you want to watch me send a man into the stratosphere, then stick around and enjoy the show. I will go over the mods I am using for this video as I go along. With that being said, let's get to the fun part. Quick sidebar. Before we get into the video, I wanted to apologize for being gone for as long as I have been. My day job was low on workers, and the summertime is when we get the most business. So in turn, that means I get scheduled far more than normal, which is great for my bank account, but kicks my mental health in the balls. Between work and family stuff, I've been trying to find time to work on videos, but it has been difficult. I refuse to just quit YouTube, and will continue to make videos. They will just be slower to come out. I'm sorry once again for the trouble, and I hope you'll continue watching my stupid videos. Sorry for ranting, let's get back to the video. I started off in a strange cryopod. I didn't know how I had gotten there, or why my asshole hurt. But I was thankfully able to open the pod and free myself from my frozen prison. I stopped for a second to raise my special stats to 20 because, well, Superman. I warmed up my knuckles on the roaches in the vault, accidentally glued a gun to my hands, and was forced to run away from the remaining bugs. I was able to juke past the stupid bugs, and lose them in the main entrance area. I grabbed the Pip-Boy, finally reached the exit, and made sure my hair was immaculate before escaping into the nuclear shithole. I immediately went over to the chemistry station to craft the main mod. However, for some reason, it didn't seem to be working. So after a little bit of troubleshooting, I am finally able to download Superman and Supergirl's Suit by Skull Cowboy. It's a mod that adds the Superman costume to the game, as well as giving the player all the powers of the Blue Boy Scout, such as super strength and super jumping, but the best part of this mod is the very special items that you are able to craft. I'll save them for later when they come up in the video. I switched my blue vault suit for a different pair of blue tights, and got to test out just how fast I am able to move. Mind you, this is the lowest setting. What the fuck? We'll get to the higher settings later. Oh my god. Also, let me just show you my pristine flying skills.
Perfection.
Moving on, I sped through Concord like a speeding bullet, and tested out my super punch on the nearby raiders, as well as my super breath, which basically just makes people go flying. I love it. Upon entering the museum, I let loose my heat vision, vaporizing the raiders into piles of smoldering ash, made some raider sickles with my frost breath, and finally reached Preston and the Minutemen. Leaving the museum, I scared the shit out of a raider on top of the nearby building, and exert dominance over the enemies on the street. While I was dealing with the raiders, a giant scaly piece of shit emerged from its little hidey hole. I then proceeded to punch a third of its health away in one shot. Wanting to have some fun with this thing, I pulled out my super breath and absolutely launched the Deathclaw across the street. I continued to bully the giant lizard, even blowing up a nearby car while I was at it. That is until I grew bored and switched my heat vision, burning a hole into the beast before violently blowing on it with my cold breath. Flying back to the museum, I got a long-range heat vision kill. I spoke with Preston, flew back to Sanctuary, but got distracted halfway by Dogmeat, who I decided to bring with me for my adventure. Everyone needs a crypto in their life. Everyone. I picked up the solar-powered perk to harness the full, concentrated power of the sun! I met with Preston back at the Sanctuary to complete the quest, and grabbed the Iron Fist and Toughness perks to make me feel like Superman. I also might have grabbed something from the Creation Club. What's up, Crypto? Who's a good boy? With everything ready, I booked it across the wasteland, accidentally landing too hard in Covenant and turning all the people hostile. This isn't the last time that ability will screw me over. For some reason, whenever I land, I do a ground attack like I am in a suit of power armor, even though I am only in bright blue spandex. I ran away not wanting to kill anyone on accident, and instead punched a bunch of churchgoers in the face. I flew up to a nearby building to punch a super mutant in the face, before flying over to a construction site to terrorize the mutants inside, beating mutants to a pulp until one of them blows up in my fucking face, crippling my arm and my leg in the process. How the fuck? How do you cripple Superman? Pissed off, I went and took my anger out on some nearby raiders, before finding myself a good neighbor. I jumped over the door like it was nothing. Did a takedown that Bruce showed me one time. Go to fucking sleep. before jumping away like I didn't just choke a bitch out. I flew over a building for some reason, landing in the middle of a cemetery and punching holes in a bunch of zombies. I finally reached Park Street Station entrance and proceeded to melt through all the triggermen that got in my way. I froze the rest of the ones in the main station area before speeding over to the vault's entrance. I finished off the guards, blew the triggermen in the entrance away, and turned a shit ton of people into ash with my laser eyes. I love that if you use this ability in third person, it actually looks like the laser is coming out of your eyes. I finally feel like an Assaultron. Let me know if that's a challenge you guys like to see. I reached Dino in the atrium area and absolutely rocked his shit, throwing him into the air as an extra fuck you. I rescued Cyborg, played hide the laser with some goons, and punched a man in the ass. Surprise, motherfucker! I made the rest of the Triggerman go flying with my sensual breathing. Even blew a guy in the corner until he couldn't take anymore.
What did he say?
I got the inspirational perk because Superman is pretty damn inspirational, as well as the local leader perk for whatever reason. I don't know actually why I got this perk. We finally reached the end of the vault, where we are confronted by Skinny, who I proceed to burn into a pile of ash, along with his girlfriend and goons. So that's what Skinny smells like. Smells like bitch. I met Cyborg outside the vault and told him I'd meet up with him at his agency. I launched myself towards Diamond City, handling a pack of wild dogs on the way, and what can I say? Superman got a thing for the reporters, goddamn. I was finally able to enter the main market area. I flew up to the mayor's office and was about to do my usual method of stealing Kellogg's house key, but then I remembered that I'm Superman. He wouldn't steal. I left and crafted some more ammo for my special abilities, found Cyborg as he was running home, and quickly sat down with him to discuss my strange wake-up call in a cryopod. While we spoke, my memory flashed, seeing a bald man with a scar come right up to me. I told Cyborg and he tells me that sounds like the local mercenary called Kellogg. We left to search Kellogg's house, but was distracted by a hostage situation. I was thankfully able to calm down the situation by blowing the wrong fucking guy into the nearby awning, causing the entire Diamond City area to go hostile against me. I loaded a previous save, and dealt with the correct guy this time. I met back up with Cyborg, who is unable to open Kellogg's door. I held back the urge to just kick the damn thing down, and instead paid a quick visit to the mayor's secretary. However, I did get distracted a little bit. I was taking so long, Crypto went off to do his own thing. I was thankfully able to charm the secretary into giving me Kellogg's house key. I launched myself back to Cyborg, and we made our way inside. We found Kellogg's bitch cave. Crypto got way too comfortable with the shelving unit, and I used his super sniffer to catch Kellogg's scent. However, before we left Diamond City, I stopped by the local news station and picked up a feisty 5'7" woman with a thing for candy. Flying out of Diamond City, I ran into a Yaguai just outside the city limits. I hit it with the Spinning Boy Wonder special, nailing it from the top ropes, before finishing it off with a single punch. I continued the bear killing streak by finding one taking a nap, and proceeded to blow it into a nearby tree. I didn't stop there though. Hey! Who said you could fly away? I chased the bitch down and found it in some sort of water-induced limbo. I decided to leave the bear alone and take down a couple of ghouls that had come out of the bushes. While I was messing around, it gave some super mutants a nipple-hardening experience. However, I was more surprised to find the Yao Guai again. I made sure to stay on him like stink on an asshole until suddenly a brand new bear came out of fucking nowhere. I hit Yogi and Boo Boo with a powerful blast from my super breath, taking them out as they landed hard. I skedaddled out of there, punched the shit out of a couple of ghouls, and finally reached Kellogg's hideout. I waited around to skip the rad storm, waited for Dogme to catch up by lasering through Kellogg's defenses, before finally meeting up with Crypto and immediately busting our way into Kellogg's bunker. Also, there's a cool thing you can do with the super speed, that if you time your attack just right, you get a super fast attack that would make the Flash blush. God, I love Super Breath so much. I wonder if you can beat the entire game while only using this insane knockback. I beat up some of Cyborg's siblings on the way, but for the majority of them I just used my laser eyes. I don't know what it is, but just vaporizing these tin cans just felt so satisfying. I continued my massacre as I got closer to Kellogg, my anger growing for some reason. Something about that bald head just brought back terrible memories, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I finally reached Kellogg, and didn't even give him a chance to speak as I immediately blasted him in the face with my super breath, not letting him get up for a while until I get distracted by one of his robots. He was about to use his stealth tech, and I stopped him by giving him a fucking flying knee to the jaw, taking him out for good. I pulled Kellogg's brains out of his skull, downloaded his files on Kryptonians, and watched as a dime store watchtower floated over the horizon. As I watched, I immediately got curious and actually flew off towards the blimp, and was surprised to find that the whole thing was a lie. This was nothing but a massive illusion. I'm able to just fly through it like it was made out of air. My curiosity peaked. I started running along underneath the fake blimp, wanting to beat it to its destination. I stopped by a battlefield along the way and watched a man get shot up the ass by a rocket. I rushed the mutant with the rocket launcher, and it was able to cripple my leg. That only slowed me down for a second before I took it out. I had fallen behind the blimp, and I immediately set off to close the gap, using a mixture of running and jumping at the right time to launch myself through the air, this being much faster than my actual flying speed. Eat shit, fish fucker!
I'm so fucking sick of that rumor.
It's not a rumor.
Fuck you, Barry.
After channeling my inner Michael Phelps, I finally reached the airport, beating the blimp by a good distance. I did my victory spinning as the two blimps scissored each other.
Nice.
I exerted dominance over the blimp before running my way back to Diamond City and discussing my findings with Cyborg. He sends me off to Goodneighbor in order to get Kellogg's brains. Wait. I smell a bitch. I hit Swan so fucking hard I made him start flying around on his own before he realized, oh shit, I can't fly, and plunged to the ground at Mach speed. I finally reached Dr. Amari at Goodneighbor, and with some help from Cyborg, I am able to climb into the mindfuck chair and trip balls. Did you know you can jump off this and die? I don't think I'm supposed to be up here. I finished going through the diet Inception, where I learned that a place called the Institute was the one that hired Kellogg. I also learned of Virgil, an Institute scientist who Kellogg's been hunting down. I exited the pod and knew I needed to find this scientist for more information. Kellogg mindfucked Cyborg for a second, and this never comes up again. I didn't take 2 steps outside before something just fucking exploded in the distance for some reason. I ignored it and flew out of town, only to get distracted by a super large mutant base. Some of them had the misfortune of getting stuck in an enclosed space with me as I started wailing with my fists. I triggered a suicider to blow up, and I think it's a good time to say that I am trying out another mod for this video. Have you guys realized that there's been a notable lack of exploding bodies in this video? If you have, that's not you going batshit crazy. I grabbed a mod called No Organic Dismemberment, Only Blood by Laruncure. I definitely butchered that. This mod just basically disables all the gory exploding bodies. Normally, I wouldn't play with this. However, for some reason, my Doomslayer video from a couple months back was hit with limited ads. They won't tell me what I did wrong, and it had already gotten too many views at that point to re-upload it. So that leads me to think on why I got limited ads over my other videos. I believe it has something to do with all the gore in the game, and thus I got this mod to test it out. Let me know what you guys think about this mod. I'm still on the fence of making it a permanent part of the future videos, or just going back to normal. I'll let you guys decide in the comments. With that long ass rant over with, let's get back to the video. Shit, wrong clip. Upon leaving the Supermutants, I accidentally blew up Piper and Crypto. They were fine. I then found even more Supermutants, even 2 Suiciders at once, which I dealt with easily. However, as I went through more of them, another one shows up out of nowhere. Why are there so many depressed Supermutants out there? I've somehow found myself at Gunner's Plaza, where I immediately target the guy with the fat man, freezing him in his tracks and finishing the job with a quick laser to the asshole. Superman's signature move, by the way. I followed up the Gunner brutality by vaporizing another one, and catching his thrown rocket launcher mid-air. I felt unstoppable until something unexpected happened. A turret with explosive rounds was able to trap me in a stun lock and actually do a good amount of damage to me. I was about to die and retreated to a nearby barrier, getting injured in the process. I was thankfully able to peek out from behind cover and blast the enemies with my heat vision. Moving along, I did some advanced hunting and blew another behemoth away like it was nothing. The big guy didn't even get to touch the ground and died in mid-air. However, before I could admire my handiwork, I had to deal with a shit ton of enemies that were all around me. I even learned that I'm able to blow vertibirds around. However, nothing beats a good old laser beam. I witnessed the human fucking Torch, who I promptly killed with frosty nipples. I continued my way through these poor raiders, hitting takedowns I never get to see on my other videos. Finally, with that completed, I sprinted off towards the glowing sea, reaching the edge a minute or 2 later. I started off my journey with a nice ghoul warm-up before sending a nearby Deathclaw on a fucking journey across the glowing sea itself. Don't worry, I took it out humanely. I was running and accidentally came upon a guy with the BFG from the Doom Guy Creation Club content. I tried to fly around him and use my laser to blast him, trying to dodge the giant green energy blasts. I was thankfully able to knock him down with my super breath, and finished the job while he was knocked down. Now I had the BFG. Which I will not use, but oh, is it tempting. I seem to be running into everything but Virgil as I terrorize a random Enclave soldier for no reason, and ran around a horde of feral ghouls, blasting them with my freezing breath. Piper may have gotten in the way, but she was fine afterwards. After dealing with all of that, I sped through the crater, surprisingly not angering the residents with my seismic stomp, and finally reached Virgil's cave, where I have to fist fight a damn Deathclaw, breaking his jaw and speaking with Virgil himself. I had to restrain myself when I saw that he was a super mutant. He tells me to go retrieve a courser chip. I got distracted by bullying a couple of rad scorpions, especially one who I absolutely launched across half the damn sea. I took my anger out on the nearby death squad, breaking its jaw like Virgil's guard dog. I finally exited the glowing sea, reached the CIT ruins, and terrorized some of the local raiders along the way. The Green Tech Genetics building was just down the street. I made my way inside in search of the Courser, and blasted my way through the gunners that got in my way. I used my heat vision for the majority of the fighting, bathing the halls in its ominous red glow. I flew up to the higher bridge in order to take out a gunner with a missile launcher. I blew them away in order to deal with the rest of the gunners that were running around, and just as I finished them off, I turned my head just to get a missile to the fucking knee. I didn't appreciate the attempt at kneecapping me, and dealt with the remaining gunners on the way to the Courser. I rose upon the robotic bitch like a T-posing Jesus, and sucker punched him into the fucking sky. He tried to hide by going invisible, but my knee is heat-seeking, launching him across the room in a destroyed pile. I grabbed the Courser chip from the corpse, and saved the synth woman that was trapped by the gunners. I left Green Tech Genetics to beat up some raider ass, as well as some raider dick.
Jesus Christ.
I saw Crypto play with the locals, vented some anger out on the nearby truck, and saw a man holding his cock. He's got a weapon! I finally reached the old rundown church, blasted my way through the ghouls on the inside, figured out the stupid puzzle, and finally spoke with the members of the railroad. I told them of the Courser chip and they helped me with deciphering the damn thing. While I was there, I went through my gear to see what I could change, and found that I could increase my movement speed. This is my walking speed, by the way. I was even able to increase my flight speed as well. I flew close to Vault 95 and decided to punch a couple of Assaultrons in the face, making sure not to let them shoot their load all over me. Also, remember when I was tweaking my abilities? Huh, I wonder what this does.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
It jumped up a notch.
It did, didn't it?
I reached Virgil with the Courser chip, and he gives me plans to craft a teleporter. I flew across the glowing sea, smacking a rad scorpion as I go. As I got back to the Commonwealth, I realized I haven't finished the Minutemen's first settlement quest, which means they won't help me create the teleporter. So that leads me to the Corvega assembly plant, where I get to have a lot of fun with the raiders that called it home. I choked a bitch out, sucker punched another one, and was reborn. Motherfucker. This poor man got blown up after getting choked the fuck out. Before making my way inside to freeze off the raiders' toes. I made it to the last few raiders and used my laser eyes to finish them off. When I left the plant, I got into a master clusterfuck between a group of super mutants and ghouls that just went on and on. New opponents coming out of nowhere just for me to blast them in the face. Also, a side effect of the Superman mod, there are times when the Pip-Boy will just not show up when you click the button. However, it is an easy fix of just closing and reopening the Pip-Boy menu for it to reappear again. I made it to the first settlement and I was able to skip their mission, allowing me to fly back to Sanctuary in the process. I was moving so fast that the town didn't want to load for me for a while, forcing me to get much closer before it actually popped in. I fucked around with my suit a little bit. The speed is incredible, but the problem is my movement speed is also affected, making my walking feel like I'm an Olympic sprinter. Also making me drift as if I'm standing on ice. Not wanting to deal with that, I lowered my speed to a more manageable amount. I finally spoke with Preston and got Sturgis to help me with the teleporter plans. I got to flirt with Piper, got the giant machine built, powered it up, and told Sturgis that I was ready. I may or may not have fucked up my landing on the platform, making me get stuck off to the side of the machine, somewhere I was not meant to be. I couldn't move as a giant flash zapped all of my molecules, and I am transported into the Institute. I really hope nothing just happened to me. I downloaded the Institute's search history, took a really slow elevator, and found something I was not expecting. A child that looked just like me. I was distracted by an elderly man who entered the room. He explains to me that he was the leader of the Institute and stole my DNA while I was frozen. He says that he's been trying to replicate my abilities but hasn't been able to do it so far, and asks me to join him in his experiments. I flatly refused his proposal and told him I wanted to leave. He is reluctant, but knowing that they would be no match for me, he relents and lets me leave through the teleporter again. Just as I am transported outside, I saw a UFO crash land nearby. I found the ship and followed the trail of green blood to a convenient cave entrance, finding an actual alien inside. He immediately tried to kill me, and I was forced to defend myself. I began making my way back to the sanctuary where I ran into a random raider and blew him off into the fucking moon. Forget I said that. I sent a bunch of gunners flying soon afterwards. Before I am finally able to return to Sanctuary like a fucking runaway train, I dropped off the Institute's search history for Sturgis. I tweaked my super punch so I don't send people to the fucking sun anymore, and finally started the Minutemen's main quest line, starting the first of many settlement missions. I went out to the next settlement, learning how to fly along the way, and nearly getting a mini nuke to the face.
I'm in danger!
I made sure to smack down the dumbass raider in power armor, then thought it would be a good idea to fire a nuke at the man who can punch like a nuke. Nearby I was able to place a Mirelurk skeet shooting, lasers beaming the damn thing as it flew through the air. I stopped by a super mutant base, hoping to finish one of the settlement quests early, but when I got there, I accidentally landed too hard, causing them to go hostile against me. The same thing that happened back at Covenant. It was so bad that Piper left my party. I took my anger out on the poor Assaultron that was nearby. I went to go check up on the— holy shit. I stopped by the Saugus Ironworks to deal with a bunch of fire-worshipping freaks while I was beating their asses. A group of gunners thought it was a good idea to launch a mini-nuke at me, setting my sights on some dead men. I made them into Team Rocket, blasting off into space again. I then proceed to absolutely humiliate the remaining members of the gunners.
When I grow up, I want to go to the moon.
Why wait?
Returning to Saugus, I made a raider fucking disappear before finding a random Assaultron and fought fire with fire, melting it into scrap metal. When I got inside, I decided to use my cold breath against the fire worshippers, making sure they chill the fuck out. Hey, what's this? Ooh, toasty. After my lava bath, I made it into the boss room, and I talked Jake into not killing a man. With that taken care of, I got behind the main boss and blasted him in the ass with my super breath, sending him flying into the massive vat of molten metal. How the fuck did he not die? I dealt with his goons, and then was confused when I wasn't able to find him. That is until a little bitch came back through the main doors, and I proceeded to jiggle him like an overused stress toy. I let Crypto finish off the job by binding him in his shining metal ass. I freed the prisoner, but before I could do anything, he became hostile and Jake took him out. Deciding not to get into that can of worms, I brought Jake back to his settlement and was able to add Finch Farm to the Minutemen. I will not be going into this much detail with the other settlements, only the ones where I find something interesting or something funny happens. With that being said, I flew at a giant group of raiders and absolutely blasted one into the horizon. I continued my rampage as I lasered my way through more, and found that Crypto had taken down a mutant in BDSM gear. The mutant punching didn't stop there, however, as I launched another one into a couple of rat scorpions, which I turned into my own personal punching bags. I turned Hammer into a fucking popsicle. I finally stopped by the next settlement, and a few seconds later I descended from the heavens to blast a couple of bugs with my freezing breath. I cleared out the house and completed the settlement mission. I had a quick power nap, hoping that the settlement from earlier would stop being mad at me. I returned making damn sure I didn't fly into the area, and was thankfully able to talk with them. They sent me off to the Dunwich Boars, but I found an injured dog along the way and made sure to heal it back up. I was disappointed that I was unable to send him back to Sanctuary and was forced to leave him behind. I dropped by the Enclave patrol near the Dunwich Boars and fought fire with ice, freezing the Hellfire armor until it was a walking freezer. I dealt with the remaining Enclave soldiers and then blasted a couple of raiders into a giant gaping hole. I blasted my way through the last few raiders until the last one, who jumps to their own death instead of trying to face me. That is a smart man right there. I made it inside the mine and introduced my fist to a bunch of raider faces. I also scared the shit out of the main raider boss. I blasted her across the hallway, staring her down as she slowly stood back up before bashing her brains in. I went deeper into the mine, making sure to freeze the ghouls that I came across. That is until I came upon the fucking horde and just blasted them with my super breath until they couldn't get back up. I have to say, I just love the ragdoll physics in this game. Watching their floppy bodies as they fly away at high speeds always gets a smile on my face. I tripped balls for a second before getting jump scared and blasting a feral ghouls away. I dealt with the zombies before realizing that one of them had gotten trapped in a nearby hole. I was able to fry him with my laser vision, grabbed the crumbs too for no reason, and vaporized any ghoul who tried to run at me in a very narrow hallway. I finally reached the exit and that's fine. Where did I last save?
Oh, hell no!
Fuck this. Nope, I'm not doing that bullshit again. I made it back outside and returned to the settlement to complete the quest. To take my anger out on the game crashing, I beat the shit out of a local Deathclaw. I got a damn home run on that thing, knocking it out of the sinkhole. I made sure to hunt it down and finish it off. I was starting to get better at flying around, going so fast I made the landscape look even shittier than it usually does. I stopped by Preston to turn in my quest, and he tells me that he wants to clear out the old castle on the other side of Boston. I agree and sprinted my way towards the old base, flying over the buildings of downtown Boston as I ran. As I ran, I hit a car and nearly lost all of my health in an instant. I couldn't believe my eyes as the sheer damage a parked Mustang did to me. I couldn't let my enemies see my weakness and destroyed the car with my heat vision. I reached the outside of the castle, where Preston somehow beats me there, even though I ran like Usain Bolt on cocaine. We discussed our plan of attack, and immediately threw it out the window in exchange for me overpowering the stupid crabs. Every time they tried to get close to me, I blasted them away with my super breath. I even saved Preston and his Minutemen from a Mirelurk at one point. My super breath did short work on all the egg clusters and crabs to a point of comedy. While I was bullying one of the crabs, its mommy came out to teach me a lesson. I proceeded to blast the damn thing with my heat vision, trying to kill it while I was midair. A difficult task to aim as you're trying to keep airborne. I made a Mirelurk discover God. powered up the castle's radio, and finished the mission before immediately getting saddled up with even more. Finally remembering Piper, I returned to Sanctuary and added her to my party once again. While making our way to the next settlement mission, I stopped a fight before a couple of settlers could be killed, and was able to recruit them to the castle. With that taken care of, I lasered a suicidal mole rat, vaporized the raiders on the inside with little difficulty, grabbed the locket for the quest, and threw a shit ton of haymakers against a bunch of roaches. I flew my way to the Abernathy farm, and was able to finish their mission immediately. While on my travels, I came upon a Deathclaw and Deathclaw battle royale. Sadly for them, I wanted their XP. Smacking them both into the air, I juggled one of them until it couldn't take any more and died. Don't worry, the second one didn't get away from my fists. I think the power is going to my head. Moving on, remember that battle I had just after leaving Kellogg's? Well, I'm back again, and this time I went inside the water treatment plant to drain it out. Also to clear out the infestation of mirelurks that called the plant their home. I went around the building, flipping switches in order to lower the water level, a task that is made exceptionally easier with the use of my powers. I finished off the last of the crabs, restarted the treatment pump, and flew my way over to Grey Garden in order to complete the quest. Afterwards, I believe I was able to hit my longest sustained flight yet, being able to make it to Grey Garden to Easy City Downs in a fraction of the time it would take normally. The trick I found for flying is to start running and then jump and hold the button up for a little bit. However, don't hold it for too long. Get some air and then release the flight button. Make sure you're holding down the sprint stick as you're doing this. I believe by doing this, you are tricking the game into thinking that you are on solid ground, and so it'll give you the speed boost while you're still in the air. This only seems to work in first person, however, but if you want to soar across the Commonwealth, this is the fastest way I found. I reached the settlement, and they sent me off to take out the raiders at the Easy City Downs. When I reached the area, I used my ice breath to slow down the competition, before introducing far too many heads to my knee of justice. Don't worry, I got both heads. Aside from crushing a man's family jewels, I launched another man into low orbit. I chased after that guy, and miraculously the fucker somehow survived. Never mind. I returned to give one guy the worst wake-up call of all fucking time, and relayed my success to the settlement in need. While I was there, I topped off on some more ammo, and sped my way back towards the castle. If you're wondering what I used for a rudder, I'll give you a hint. My pants are down. No fish, that's not bait! I reached Preston to turn in the quests, and then immediately left to complete some more, stumbling on a clusterfuck of synths, brotherhood, and a suicider. Suicider! I made my way to Hangman's Alley to snap a man's neck and set up a radio beacon. I got a nice shot on a suicider, and got told of a settler that had been kidnapped, and rocked a guy in a giant tin can. I made it to the kidnapper's hideout, sending one flying as another thought it would be a good idea to sneak up on me with a fucking pool cue. I lasered my way through a couple of the raiders, before using my ice breath against the boss and the ones upstairs. I was able to rescue the settler, and asked her to be more careful next time. I stopped by Somerville Place and was tasked with taking out a bunch of pink-skinned ghouls at a nearby high school. I got slightly distracted by a nearby fighting, and blasted a vertibird out of the sky while I was there. Don't worry, no one was hurt. I made it inside the school, and with the help of my ice breath, the ghouls didn't stand a chance against me. They were so weak compared to me, that they couldn't even last a second against my cold breath. When I reached the main room, I switched over to my super breath instead, just so that I could make the glowing one's torture last a little bit longer, blasting it all over the room like a leaf on the wind, until it finally wasn't able to take any more and died of embarrassment. On the way back to the settlement, I may or may not have stopped to bully a couple of bears that were stalking a nearby house. They weren't able to stand against my heat vision for very long. I relayed my success to the settlement, quickly flew my way back to the castle, and talked with Preston to complete the quests. He sends me off to deal with a kidnapping. Wait. You look familiar. I went out to where the kidnappers were, making sure no one got inside the nearby power armor. I made my way inside and pushed my way through the dumbasses that got in my way. I even caused a raider to go flying by blowing up a nearby turret. When I leveled up, I grabbed the second rank of the Intimidation perk, and due to my abilities just basically being invisible guns, I am able to pacify a couple of the raiders. I can just imagine Superman turning the corner with his eyes glowing red. I'd be shitting my fucking pants as well. I blasted through the raider boss and was finally able to reach the hostage. Bitch, how many times are you going to get fucking kidnapped? I returned to the settlement and told the other settler to keep an eye on her friend. I went and met with some more settlers, before blasting a deathclaw into the ocean. But when I found it, it tried to attack me while walking in the water. Not wanting to deal with that black magic fuckery, I vaporized the giant beast with my heat vision. I got to the raider outpost, and froze a guy before they go flying from their friend's grenades. I dealt with the remaining raiders on the outside, flirted with Piper some more, and punched my way through Asmongold's apartment. Further in, a dumbass with a sword tried to block my punch and gets sent flying through the air. I didn't want to waste my time with the raiders in this hideout, and proceeded to use my heat vision to destroy anything that moved, turning the final boss into a pile of ash. As I was leaving, a bunch of raiders tried to get in my way, and they soon regretted that mistake. I returned to the settlement to turn in the quest, and soon found myself flying to a mutant-infested hospital for another settlement. I sniped the suiciders mini nuke outside, and blew on the one inside until it exploded its nuclear load. I used my ice breath to take out the rest of the mutants, until I'm able to find the key to the operating room. I finished off the mutant leader with little difficulty, and relayed my success to the settlement shortly thereafterwards. I returned to Preston, hoping to find Ronnie Shaw in order to accelerate the main quest line. She was nowhere to be found, and I decided to take a quick power nap, hoping that she would pop up in the middle of the night. That thankfully worked, allowing me to start her armory mission, and start the end of the game. I followed Ronnie down into the catacombs underneath the castle and got to fight a giant sentry bot, freezing its motherboard before blasting it in the face with my laser eyes. We found the body of the Minuteman General. Ooh, wine. I tried to help him get more comfortable, before acquiring the plans to the artillery cannons. I crafted the artillery and yeeted the smoke into the nearby parking lot, enjoying the giant explosions as the quest finished. With the artillery finally crafted, I spoke with Preston and started the castle defense mission. Needing more defense points, I began randomly setting up turrets all over the castle until I'm finally able to go kick some robotic ass. I scared the oil out of the synths as I began to destroy their numbers, my abilities allowing me to attack from a lot of different angles, as well as being able to travel from the front and the back of the castle in a matter of seconds. The giant swarm of robots gave plenty of targets to practice on with my laser eyes, melting every single one of them into scrap metal, descending upon them like an angered god, and gave a courser frosty nipples. Do coursers have nipples? Leave it in the comments below. For a friend. While I was freezing a synth in the back, I booked it over to the front of the castle so I could also fight the synths in the front area. I also sent some robots flying into the ocean while I was at it. Starting to run low on the normal synths and focused on the coursers instead. I began to finally reach 90% completion on the defense, but as I smashed the last of the robots, the quest didn't complete. I looked around the area, not sure what to do, and wondered if the game had bugged out again. This is until I found a courser washed up on shore, and I realized I hadn't finished all of the synths yet. I launched a couple of them into the ocean. I had to wait a couple of minutes before I am finally able to find the last robot. I took it out, and the quest finally completed. I spoke with Preston and told him I decided to retaliate against the Institute. I flew off to Sanctuary, spoke with Sturgis about finding a way into the Institute. As he figured that out, I modified my suit into something far more badass than my normal colors. Sturgis found a way. I took a quick power nap, and sped through the Commonwealth on my way to the Institute. I had to deal with a group of raiders that I had run into at Mach speed, rescued a poor diner owner from a couple of thugs. I got really sidetracked along the way, ending up in a giant sinkhole, and lasered a bunch of ghouls while I was at it. I messed with the glowing one by jumping away whenever it got close to me, vaporizing it just like the others. I finally reached the Institute's entrance, swam up their asshole, and emerged within a sewer system. I was able to blast the turrets that were always able to melt through my health, dealt with the terrible ghoul infestation, including a glowing one, who I definitely gave frostbite. I dealt with the rest of their defenses, sent the synth flying, as well as juggling it around for fun. I finished off the last few guards, entered the teleporter room, hacked their command terminal, and transported the Minutemen into the Institute to help me out.
You serious?
I'm kidding, I don't need any help with this whatsoever. Preston handed me the bomb for the reactor, and our attack immediately started off with a lot of lasers and my super breath, watching them go flying as the Minutemen came in from behind. As I continued on my way, I just blasted everything that got in my way with my super breath. At one point I used it to keep every synth on the ground and unable to attack me. That is until I got bored with that, and switched over to my heat vision to finish them off. I finally reached the Institute proper, and immediately punched the closest thing I could get my hands on. However, I had the most fun fist fighting Gorilla Grodd, even though they didn't stand much of a chance against me. Nothing inside the garden area was able to escape my fists, as I made my way towards the main atrium area. The first thing I do when entering the main room is to blast everything around me across the atrium. That is before switching over to my fists. I punched out a synth in black armor, and froze the remaining robots in their tracks, finally clearing out the enemies, needing to shut off the shutdown. I took the elevator to Father's room, where I find him in bed, close to death. I get him to give me the lockdown password, as well as the code to deactivate a lot of the remaining synths. With the codes loaded, I dealt with the rest of the robots, including the ones that were powered down, and introducing everyone to a Kryptonian knuckle sandwich. I lasered through a couple more guards, froze the last two into walking ice cubes, and broke a bald guy's back. I finally reached the reactor room, dealing with the turrets on the side of the wall. I rushed the reactor, blowing away everyone I could hit in order to make them easier to take down for my Minutemen. While I was doing this, I accidentally hit the Black Armor synth and he somehow died on impact with the floor below. I found his corpse soon afterwards, wanting to enjoy my next kill. I toyed with the second Black Armor synth, beating it around like a cat playing with a mouse, before picking it up by the chrome cock and slamming it onto the floor with all my strength. With that all taken care of, I placed the bomb onto the reactor, and in a flash of light, Sturgis teleports us back to the relay. I found the small clone of myself waiting for me, and he circled me like a hungry shark. I was unnerved by the thing, but I wasn't about to just let him go down with the ship. I told Sturgis to power up the relay. I got transported out of the Institute and onto the top of the mass fusion building, a big red button at my disposal. I gave it a big press and watched as the Institute went up into a giant ball of nuclear fire, proving that yes, you can obviously beat Fallout 4 as Superman. Thank you for everyone who made it this far, and thank you for your continued support. I know I have been gone quite a while, and believe me, I am not happy about it. But that's life, can't control everything. I just hope you guys will tolerate my bullshit a little longer. I hope everyone is having a fun summer, and I hope to see everyone in the theaters for Superman. With that being said, thank you once again for giving me your time. Give me some challenge suggestions in the comments, and remember to stay safe out there. Love you guys. See ya.